I was going to start with a different story, but in one of the articles that I have open because I wanted to talk about it, it's an article on the Hill, but then just in the sidebar with other articles, I just see this headline. Kevin Costner defends Liz Cheney. This woman should never be threatened. To which I say, thank you, Kevin. This woman should never be threatened. Kevin Costner is offering an impassioned defense of Liz Cheney, saying the former GOP congresswoman who bucked her party with the fierce criticism of President-elect Trump should be applauded. I expect people in government to do the right thing. Public service is about public service. It's not about your career. It's not about your ego. The former Yellowstone star said in a live town hall edition on Monday of the Michael Smerconish program. Okay, that's the funniest detail that Kevin Costner is on the Michael Smerconish show.
What were the threats?
Oh, this was when Trump said in the last week of the election when Kamala was out there with Liz Cheney. He was basically said something to the effect of all she wants to do is war. Put a rifle in her hand, and it's not so easy when you got 9 guns pointed at you. And people interpreted that as a firing squad was going to execute her. And I was like, calm down. Trump has done some bad things too. We don't need to go overboard here and praising him. But yeah, no, it's Kevin Costner. He's defending Liz Cheney from being executed by the state.
Still a beast. Can't wait for the movie.
American Horizon Part 3 coming soon. But no, the story that I did want to begin with today is a story that got lost in the election shuffle, but I think it's very important. I'd like to start out the show doing some monkey news. Post-election, I'm just going to be stealing bits from other podcasts. So this is your monkey news. This was from last week. 1 monkey recovered safely. 42 others remain on the run from South Carolina lab.
At large?
Yeah,
they're at large?
42 monkey. Okay, this is from Columbia, South Carolina. This is the AP reporting. One of 43 monkeys bred for medical research that escaped a compound in South Carolina has been recovered unharmed, officials said Saturday. Many of the others are still located a few yards from the property, jumping back and forth over the facility's fence, police said in a statement. The rhesus macaques made a break for it Wednesday after an employee at the Alpha Genesis facility in Yamasee didn't fully lock a door as she fed and checked them, officials said. The monkeys on Friday were exploring the outer fence of the Alpha Genesis compound and were cooing at the monkeys inside. The primates continued to interact with their companions inside the facility on Saturday, which is a positive sign, the police statement said. And I got to say, I was a little... First of all, okay, so monkeys breaking out from a disease research laboratory, never a good story, but the fact that this lab was called Alpha Genesis...
Yeah, that's dangerous. That's the umbrella corporation.
That's this might be a PPP scam. That's what I would name my science lab. Alpha Genesis.
Yeah.
So beginning start. That's fucking stupid. No, this is if you go in there, there are going to be guys wearing fashion coats over Fashion Nova clothes. That's not a real fucking science thing. I promise.
Yeah, I'm glad they escaped. I had a friend that did she's a neurologist, and she was working on schizophrenia drug testing, and she worked on little mice. And she's like, no, I'm really in favor of animal testing because it saves lives. And then someone goes, how do you give a mouse schizophrenia? And she goes, you know what? I changed my mind that day. This isn't that useful.
Well, I mean, I guess the detail about this story that broke my heart is that after the 42 other monkeys escaped, they just wanted to hang out with the monkeys that were left in the lab. And
they were doing
like,
prison visits.
Yeah, they were pressing their little monkey tit up against the glass of the visiting window.
Give them a little banana with a file in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're institutionalized now.
Yeah.
All I wanted was a Pepsi, just one Pepsi, and she wouldn't give it to me.
They're like, that Fleece Johnson guy?
Wait, who?
You know, the guy, the famous, I like you, I want you, so we're going to do this the easy way or the hard way. The guy the booty warrior from the MSNBC lockup. Back when MSNBC put good things on TV.
Yeah, if you're
not
looking
Jen Psaki.
Yeah, no, if you're looking for more, like an obituary for what happened this election, it's that MSNBC changed their weekend programming from nonstop shows about people in prison to Jen Psaki.
Yeah. But that was a pretty I would say during the first Obama term, that was a pretty big clip. For some reason, they let this guy out, even though he's committed thousands of rapes while in prison. But he he like immediately committed an armed robbery after. And when they talked to him, he was like, well, like I was mad that they let me out. And I think the fact that I was parodied on the Boondocks had something to do with it.
I mean, what do you think? These 42 now masterless monkeys, sort of like Ronin, wandering the wilds of South Carolina. I mean, like, it's not clear in the story whether these monkeys have been infected with any kind of weapons-grade virus or anything like that, but...
Well, I think Felix is right, and this is fake science. So if they want to do a scam, just let them hang out there and be like, actually, this is a wildlife refuge.
Yeah.
It's still tax deductible.
Yeah.
Don't keep them in cages, and you could still do your scam. Just do it without cruelty to animals.
Yeah, like Alpha Genesis is so fucking. That is like a company that Steven Seagal would work for in one of his like newer movies.
I'm gonna tell you one motherfucking thing about these monkeys. Big should have locked the door when you feed them. But yeah, like Alpha Genesis Labs. Do you think that this could just be some guy who wanted to have 40 monkeys just as a pet?
It is in South Carolina.
You're doing laboratory research, you can have 42 monkeys in a warehouse.
If it was in Ohio, I would be 100% sure. I'm about 98% with South Carolina. This is just a guy who wanted monkeys. And I get it.
I mean, that's the only way you can get a good Reese's macaque is if you're planning to cut its brain out of its head after you kill it.
I mean, French Montana famously had like a pet monkey. And this was in like 2012, you know, when he was just like a moderate, when people were still saying like, can this guy say the N-word? We don't know. Like he was not even that popular back then.
I think it depends on the state. I know Ohio has the loosest exotic animal laws. I doubt South Carolina heavily regulates their
monkey brain facilities.
Or any monkey facility whatsoever.
Hey, any house with a monkey in it is a monkey facility. But yeah, like those looking for, further election moratoriums, just like look to the monkeys. The monkeys have escaped. Bad things are soon to happen. But I guess it's been about a week now since the election, and sort of the takes have sort of gelled. We're seeing sort of a gelling of the takes, and sort of people looking to ascribe reasons for this loss by Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And there's a couple of different things, but I'd like to begin now with just some reactions from voters. And this is my favorite item about people who voted for Trump. And it says here, in Scranton on Wednesday, Matt Wolfson, a 45-year-old former construction worker, looked around at poverty in the Rust Belt city and thought the nation needed a change in leadership. Wolfson said he didn't love the dictatorial aspect of Trump's personality, but thought he could help keep the country out of wars and maybe bring peace to some other conflicts, including Ukraine. He's good and bad. People say he's a dictator. I believe that. I consider him like Hitler, Wolfson said, but I voted for the man. And this is reflected in a listener comment.
Oh yes,
a listener comment someone shared where he said like his dad is obsessed with the Book of Revelations.
Yes, he said I talked to my father yesterday, and he said that he had been reading the Book of Revelations and thought that there was a very serious possibility that Donald Trump was the Antichrist. But he voted it for him anyway because he liked his tax policy.
Hey, price of eggs, man.
Yeah.
Price of eggs actually means a lot.
Well, like Revelation doesn't. There's nothing in there that's like, don't do this stuff.
I mean, it's supposed to happen.
Yeah, exactly. It's got like a revelation is like, you have a revelation. Oh, that girl was flirting with me. John Lovett is sending me messages through John Save John, his one-off pod on the Pod Save network. Oh, I should fly this airplane. Revelations are a good thing, and you're supposed to do them.
Yeah.
You work towards the revelation.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I was like, whatever. My family are evangelical. They're like, hell yeah, bring it on. I want to get raptured. Let's move on.
Speed it up.
Yeah.
Speed it up. I'm sick of this shit. Price of eggs, price of the red heifer. Price of the red heifer going up. No, this was the article at The Hill that I was looking at before I got distracted by Kevin Costner's manly defense of Liz Cheney. But here's something that the Pod Johns have been communicating. Pod Save America. Biden's internal polling showed Trump winning 400 electoral votes.
That's not that like 130 is like that's more than I've ever got.
It's true.
That's really it's like okay, how many people live in California? Like 40 million?
Like, yeah, give or take.
Okay, so that map didn't show margins. What if every single person in California had voted for Biden on that map? That's like half his popular vote count from 2020.
There you go.
And after he won Rhode Island, that's where Family Guy is. That accounts if you count everyone who's ever like I'll even, you know, I'll for fairness, I won't say everyone who's ever watched Family Guy, but like bought it on DVD. That's what, like 20 million people?
More, probably.
30 million people? Okay, so we're almost there. And then did he win New York?
Yeah, he did. Under these projections.
Amazing.
Boom. Okay, yeah, then he had, yeah. I mean, this is to me. It's like when people are like, "Oh my god!" Like, I bet I could beat Tony Snell in a pickup game. Like Joe Biden is, you know, he's closer to Donald Trump than you are to him.
It says John Favreau, a host of the political podcast Pod Save America, said during Friday's episode that President Biden's internal polling showed that President Trump would win 400 electoral votes. Then we find out when the Biden campaign becomes the Harris campaign that the Biden campaign's own internal polling at the time when they were telling us he was the strongest candidate showed that Donald Trump was going to win 400 electoral votes, Favreau said on the podcast in comments highlighted by Mediaite. And I guess like I said, the narrative is beginning to gel, but I am very much enjoying all of the, you know, backstabbing and people coming out now after they've lost to tell you all the things that they knew were wrong, you know, from the get-go. And there have been a couple of choice, like sort of wrap-ups of the Harris campaign, and particularly the one that Trump is already scoring points off of by offering to pay off their campaign debt, is the fact that the Harris campaign raised $1 billion and is somehow $20 million in debt.
Tony West really did run the campaign like Uber.
And chief among the the sort of eyebrow-raising items on the Harris campaign budget was spending $450,000 a day to have ads play on the Las Vegas Sphere. To just make the Las Vegas Sphere into a big Harris Walls ad. That's $500,000 a day.
Is their face on it?
No, it's just their names.
Ah, damn it. I want it to be their face. I want it to be that like Mussolini, you know, thing in the middle of the square, but it's her.
Yeah. Oh, and then the other one was spending $100,000 to build the set on which she was interviewed for the Call Her Daddy podcast.
Oh, do you know how many views her episode of Call Her Daddy got?
How many?
I thought this was a major coup because every fucking idiot, you know, when this happened was like, this is huge. Oh my God, it's exposing her to an audience she wouldn't have been exposed to before. Hassan showed me 800,000. Brick, like 800,000. Like I think like there are at least 2 Dan Quinn videos that did better than that.
The one where he dumps stevia in a gym's hot tub.
That's a deep cut. I'm more the one where he like the first one where he pushes his son down the stairs and then he's in his garage. Like the intro.
Yeah, I also just think like that listenership, I would just, this is guess. I could be wrong, but maybe not very active voters.
Well, I mean, I would just say the way I would analyze this is, you know, everyone's looking for, you know, how to prune their media diet, how to be a more savvy consumer of independent media. And I would say, like, my answer here is that podcasts that would spend that much money or require you to spend that much money are no good. Don't bother going on them.
Yeah.
The whole point of a podcast, zero overhead.
Yeah.
Zero overhead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, the podcast didn't spend that money.
No,
the Harris people... Like, and if you've seen this set, it just looks like every other bullshit podcast that exists. Like, it just, like I won't put that on them. There's currently like a sort of triple entente going on with Barstool affiliated media after Zach Bryan broke up with Brianna Chicken Fry.
Okay,
so I'm playing a neutral party here.
See, I was Matt and I were having conniptions the other day because for a while I thought it was Zach Brown, not Zach Bryan, and who's did the little bit of Chicken Fry song. So for a while, I thought the guy who sung the Chicken Fry song was engaged or dating someone called Brianna Chicken Fry.
Zach Bryan's totally different. Like he's I think this is amazing what's happened because he was like the most normal guy in the world. And he has like a lot of his songs are good. And his songs are kind of like, I love you. I fucking hate you. I'm sorry. I hope you have a good day. You know, like, sounds like I'm making fun of it. I'm not. I think the songs are great. But he was like, you know, just a classic case of a guy who's like kind of a dope. And then the only language he can truly speak is music. But then they made him famous and he like becomes Harvey Weinstein like instantly. Like, no, he's not as bad as Harvey Weinstein, but he was like a bad boyfriend and then tried to give Brianna Chicken Fry $12 million to like not tell people how bad of a boyfriend he was. Oof. Which they ruined him as a person so fast. Like the Zach Bryan movie, his rise to fame into him becoming like a Hollywood scumbag, that is like a 12-second montage. But Dave Portnoy did write a diss track about it.
Only need me, only one man, but you're getting DP. Offered free 13 mil, just a shutter trap. Then she turned around, said shove it up your ass. Speaks like Bugs Bunny, hair like Dog Funny. Go buy a toupee with your little hush money.
That's going to be a pretty bad knock-on effect of Trump is that, like, you know, I've previously identified that I made the breakthrough medical discovery that schizophrenics are drawn to rapping.
And you.
Well, yeah, a lot
for
of
similar reasons.
This is like I discovered this by all the people who have like rapped at me. But sort of a knock-on effect of that, of polarization and further institutional decay, is you're going to see people rap who you never thought would rap. And it's really going to suck, and it's already happening.
Well, like I said, there's like, to return to like the narratives, sort of.
Right, the election.
Dealing with the election.
Yeah.
The loss of the election. There's a couple one, but, you know, there's like, oh, okay, is it Democrats have waded too deep they've drunk too deeply from the well of identity politics.
I think that kind of went away to some degree under Biden. I think it was just, I mean, like, I think like that was sort of relief, but you look at the numbers, they really didn't like her so much. And she's more of the party thing. I don't know if wokeness like factored in so much to this. So much as like people truly hate the Democrats so much at this point that they're like, yeah, I think the Antichrist might be better.
Yeah, I really like this is going to be like an every 4 to 8 years thing while we play like federal hot potato. Like, is liberals love like self-flagellation. All I've seen since the election is like, I'm bad. I'm sorry. I'm bad. I shouldn't have worn a sparkly top. It was too weird for people in Pennsylvania. I'm sorry. Oh my God. I named my son Xander. I'm sorry. Oh my God. My Prius was too aggressive. I freaked you out.
I've seen actually like a lot more like, I mean, I just see this from people in my chats or whatever, but I've seen like a ton of there's a reason educated people vote Democrat.
Dumb fuckistan is back.
Yeah, that's sort of like it. I don't think they're as hysterical as they were last time around, but they're more smug and resentful.
Well, yeah, because it's like a 2004 style outcome.
Yeah, no, I mean,
but like of the people who are like reacting like hysterically and like, I mean, at this point, this is just what you say after Democrats lose an election or like win, but not that well, is you just say it's wokeism, even though like, yeah, they've completely abandoned that. I mean, the only argument for that is that it's the residual effects of Kamala's 2019 campaign.
Right.
And like, I could see that. I mean, it's hard to like, I think of it the same way as, you know, how Democrats were running on kids in cages and now they're like, what are you talking about? We love the entire Trump thing. And when you flip on things like that, it makes it seem like all the accusations about you are true, whether they're saying you're importing voters or whatever. It makes it seem like you got caught.
Yeah.
And you're apologizing.
I mean, yeah,
I feel
it really calmed down under Biden. I think like they were just like, we don't need to do this anymore. We also figured out that, you know, people like infrastructure bills and onshoring and kind of a weird guy. And there was nothing that suggested that anything good he did, she would upkeep. Her whole thing is like, I'm a fun giggle puss. I had a friend who said like, yeah, voting for him is like a vote for fun. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's not. This is not his peak era. We're dealing with U2 after the first albums. He's in decline mentally too. We could have had like President Xanax MILF. That would have been way more fun. I mean, like,
what is astounding is obviously, like, they were always going to say, "Oh, it was Latinx." No one has. I'm the only guy who's ever said Latinx in the last 3 years. Yeah. I'm the only guy saying it. You know, anything except for the obvious, which is the president was 170 years old and like visibly dying.
Yeah.
During all he said, politics should never be a literal battlefield. God forbid. Like, does that not factor in at all?
Yeah.
But like 80% of Americans said he was too old and infirm to be fucking president.
Well, and who they tagged in was, who the fuck is she? Like, you know, like, what the fuck? Like, nobody really likes her except, well, I like her. It's like, I've said this before, like, I don't want Joe Biden to be in charge of anything, but I do want him to be my fun neighbor who throws barbecues and gives me 2 hard handshakes where there's like a $10 in it. He says, don't tell your mom. And like, you know, I think drunk Kamala would be really fun, but like, I want her to be in charge less than a non-senile Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Like, even if Kamala didn't have like the stink of Biden on her, and like just anyone,
she had none of the good stuff either, though.
None of the good stuff, none of the retail politics ability, but also like anyone connected with that administration. I think an unsung part of this is that a lot of people who broke for Biden in 2020 are like embarrassed because it's like, oh, we were told we were electing like a competent manager of the world. And not that I think that foreign policy single-handedly swings elections, but you could just point to the state of the world right now and the fact that like they were plainly and blatantly lying about like Joe Biden's like physical and mental firmness for years. Until they finally could not hide it anymore, and they had to like do this unprecedented thing and switch him out. And so like anyone associated with that is probably rightfully like seen as someone who like helped perpetuate that fucking lie.
Yeah, well, and I think if you look at like what he was unable to do as he was campaigning, and then what Kamala had no interest in doing, like Sean O'Brien wanted to speak at both fucking, you know, like the DNC and the RNC, but like he was drooling in his soup and they couldn't like get it together. And, you know, that just meant that the only person really campaigning until the very last minute was the Republicans.
Yeah. And like in sort of like a reverse of what happened in the summer, it's not that Trump ran like the most insane campaign ever, but he did the basic things you would want to do if you wanted to win. Like he went to Hamtramck and like talked to the fucking mayor. He went to Dearborn and like openly, you know, addressed the big fucking elephant in the room. He did the basic retail politics things that someone who has really only contested against a Republican like twice in her entire career and not in really a meaningful way at that, in Kamala Harris, the lack of any retail politics impulse was very evident.
I think we're entering to the era of like the passive Trump voter, which like we used to have way more passive Democrats and now they're checking out. I don't think we have like the fervor around Trump anymore, especially because like he kind of, you know, he like lost and that kind of destroyed the mythos or whatever.
Fastball.
Yeah. But I think there are more passive voters. And I don't think they've bought into the whole thing They might even think he's the Antichrist.
I mean, like,
they're
yeah,
like, well, they're better than the Dems.
Yeah, well, like he didn't, first majority for a Republican presidential candidate since 2004. But if you like look at the actual numbers, it's not like it's about what he got last time.
It wasn't an explosion for Trump at all. And like that people, it was like 2/3 the, participation in a lot of the rallies and stuff.
Not so much realignment, but de-alignment.
Exactly. Everything's falling apart.
Exactly.
Everything's just completely falling apart.
But like, just a point I'd like to make on like the identity politics being sort of fingered as the culprit here, and it's like to the extent to which this show has been associated with being critical of identity politics. At least speaking for me personally, it was more just like a knock on the fact is that like identity politics was what was being used by Democrats and liberals to attack a broadly popular economically left-wing agenda. And like the people who are diagnosing that, we got to get rid of the wokeness. We got to get rid of the identity politics. It's like, okay, well then what do you, like usually you replace that with something. You don't have any
other thing.
You replace that with is class politics, which is like identity politics is what they break in case of emergency when it looks like class politics is gaining too much purchase.
That's what they do to Bernie.
Now it's like, okay, well now if you get rid of identity politics, so then like, well who fucks with you then?
Yeah, like, what's our new thing?
I would say like if you're not going to replace the identity politics with, like I said, broadly redistributive economic agenda, then just stick with identity politics.
I got an idea. Hats. That's the new rebrand.
Trump had a hat.
That's damn.
Trump
I
has
was
a
going to
hat.
say that we need a different hat. Progressives.
Guys, we need left-wing baseball hats.
The Democrat
available
hat,
at ChapoTraphouse.store.
The Democrat hat should be like the like the cab driver hat. It's
like from a long time ago.
I almost think it's like a tonsure now. Democrats should wear it. Democrats should wear it to like atone.
Yeah,
like that's we're sorry hat.
Yeah.
I feel the exact same way, which is. You guys wrote in Africa they call her Sister Hillary. You don't get to do this now. Like, fuck you.
Yeah. You really painted yourself into that. You got that stink on you.
We've said on the show that like all politics now is just a reaction and counter-reaction to 2020. And I really think a lot of this, like, oh my God, it was too woke. We fucked it. We put too much woke in the stew. That is like a humiliated kind of flash of self-awareness with people who were like went along with everything in 2020 and were like, I salute gushers for commending the Black experience, and now they're embarrassed and they're like, well, all of us did it. They made us do it, and it's like, no, you were 62 years old, Joe Scarborough, like.
And like, okay, another one of these like meta narratives is that it's not the economy, it's not the inflation, it's not war, it's not any of these things. It's how people perceive these things. And this is Michael Tomansky writing in the New Republic. I don't need to read it, but like basically this is an argument about the right-wing media. And what they're saying is that voters are just like easily cajoled and like they get their messages from the wrong place, which is really like a way of admitting that, like, okay, the voters are the ones that are stupid, but we're so dumb we can't trick unintelligent people into voting for us.
You had $1 billion.
Yeah.
You had $1 billion fucking dollars. You have like a pretty sizable chunk of Hollywood. Like, I'm so sick of this fucking argument from Democrats where it's like, okay, you have been saying this for years. Either like find a way around it or quit.
Like, yeah, if you can't lie to these benighted sheeple to get them to fucking pull the lever for you, then like who's uninformed? Who has a perception problem?
Yeah, it's very like the problem is that like Republicans are really good at, I don't share this view because it's very contemptuous, are very good at tricking the rubes. Then trick the rubes.
Yeah,
if that's really what you believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I got news for you. None of the cups have a ball under it.
It's like
they have identity politics.
It's just spaces under there. No ball. And then this is like downriver from, I think, like the largest meta narrative about this election, which is that it's the voters' fault. And
Yeah,
we need new voters.
They know, they owe us
And this
for
is the
all
one
the things we didn't do for them.
yeah, and this is the one that I want to read from because like this to me was like the perfect encapsulation of this meta narrative. And it's Rebecca Solnit writing in The Guardian. Headline here, our mistake was to think we lived in a better country than we do. Americans will be stuck cleaning up after MAGA's destructive streak because men like this never clean up after themselves.
What is this
Pick up your damn socks.
What is this fucking CW show writing? No, I'm sorry that I trusted you.
Yeah, it's like to which the American people would say, like in Animal House, like, you fucked up. You trusted us.
Yeah.
Sort of and she says here, it begins, our mistake was to think we lived in a better country than we do. Our mistake was to see the joy, the extraordinary balance between idealism and pragmatism, the energy, the generosity, the coalition building of the Kamala Harris campaign, and think that it must triumph over the politics of lies and resentment.
Yeah, energy is what I think of when I think of Biden and Harris.
The extraordinary balance between idealism and pragmatism. And he says, our mistake was to think that that racism and misogyny were not as bad as they are, whether it applied to someone who was willing to vote for a supremely qualified black woman, or who was willing to vote for an adjudicated rapist and convicted.
Yeah, she was appointed by the California Democratic Party. She didn't even like find her own husband. They like Noah's dad from The Sopranos was like, okay, kid, put out a casting call for a Doug.
He says, willing to vote for an adjudicated rapist and convicted criminal who admires Hitler. Our mistake was to think we could row this boat across the acid lake before the acid dissolved it.
You mean like people?
Well, you got in the lake full of acid. Maybe
people are the acid? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Like, maybe they're sensing that you hate them. Like, I mean, at least someone who's lying to you is going to suck your dick a little bit.
It shouldn't shock me anymore, but in the wake of the past week, the capacity of like every type of Democrat to fucking flatter themselves has been astounding.
We were just too good for a country of rotten, evil Nazis and misogynists and racists.
Yeah. Like Zach Bokamp said, I hope you guys like the liberal order. Because it's
going away.
It's going away. And it's like, yeah, look how great the world was for the past 2 fucking years.
Yeah.
And this, like, what's your greatest weakness? I'm too trusting.
Yeah.
I care too much.
I can't help it if I'm pretty and popular.
And okay, so she writes, we knew what the problems were and we wanted to fix them. The principal problems that got us to this bleakest moment in American history are intertwined. Is this really the bleakest moment in American history? In American history, really?
It wasn't more bleak the first. That's the other
like,
thing.
This country did fight a civil war
before.
Yeah.
It did happen. Like, they're shocked again.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my mind about it. You had like 8 years to wrap your mind about it.
And it was like the same country that elected Donald Trump once. You're like, we're shocked to find out this awful, evil country could vote for a man like Donald Trump. They already did.
Yeah.
They already did. So, I mean, yeah, you're right, Amber. You had all the years to prepare for an electorate that was willing to vote for Donald Trump. And
8
now
years.
you're just once again just being like, we're just too good for them. We're just too good for them. She says here, the principal problems that got us to this bleakest moment in American history are intertwined. They are the crisis of masculinity, the failure of the mainstream news media, and the rise of Silicon Valley. And in a way, they are all the same problem.
What a coincidence that the 3 major problems of this country are the only things you write about. Like, wow, that's really good for you. It's very Fukuyama.
I wanted to kill myself when I realized that we were going to have like a good 6 months of like, you know, what are we going to do about men articles? Like we need a positive role model for men.
It's
what
just
do you
like
want, a
we
new
need
dad?
daddies.
Yeah.
We need daddies, not like jobs or the ability to afford a house or anything. They just need dads. That's like the Obama line when he was like shitting on black men. It's like the problem is dads. Like, I don't think that's the problem, dude.
Well, no, we need new and better dads. We need left wing.
Dad
and by
2.0.
left wing, I mean Democratic dads for the wayward youth of this country. I saw someone today. I forget what article was talking about this, but it described the boy crisis that we have to deal with. The boy crisis. No, I mean, usually that's a problem in UK politics, not in America, but I guess we've imported it across the pond. But yeah, Felix, I'm with you. Because out of all of the marginalized groups that we can blame this election on, I mean, this is the one that I can speak to personally, because, I was once a young man in this country, and I was once perhaps an angry young man in this country who felt alienated from the prospect of having a career or a girlfriend. And, my advice to the young men in this country, how do we deal with the boy crisis in this country? And I'm not even kidding, is get a job. Yeah. That's the only useful advice I have to young men in this country.
Well, they need to make jobs, and they're not going to do that. Yeah, hey, a little bit of meaning, even a shitty job. So as long as it's not mind-numbingly evil.
I mean, my advice to the individuals personally is get a job, but one of the political ramifications of that is give people a fucking job.
Yeah, talk about killing two birds with one stone or one windmill. You could, pay young men to put windmills together.
Yeah, well, I gotta say the two good things about Biden that were actually good was the infrastructure bill, and should have been bigger. Bernie would have made a bigger one. And the labor policies. But with him gone, those two are fucking still. What do you think? What do you think? Kamala is going to be like, we need to build bridges. That's not going to be
no, not to coalitions. You need to build them to connect distances, so cars can traverse them.
No, I don't want and I've said this before, when historians talk about this time, we're going to realize the expectation creep that went from sometimes trains just fly off tracks. Yeah. That's just what happens sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, anything to avoid looking the most obvious things dead in the face. What, why would Americans feel alienated from, just the political process at all? Why was there a collapse in turnout? Could it be that the fact that a hospital stay, even with insurance, costs as much as a fucking car, and there's just they have totally given up on any solution to that.
Literally anything but an economic program. They will do absolutely anything but an economic program. And I have to say, one of the thing about they need new role models. What you're essentially saying is that they need a dad that isn't their actual dad.
Yeah.
And even if you're mad at your dad, you're not listening to some fucking asshole talk shit. You're not listening to Rebecca. Don't say that about my dad, fucking Rebecca Solnit. Who the fuck do you think you are?
Even when, it's offering jobs in the media for a young man, basically. Audition to become, 10 million dissatisfied young men's new father figure.
They put this in. I remember the New York Times ran below the fold, I think, but front page. It was Trump courts the bro vote, the notoriously difficult to get 23 to 35-year-old men. How do we get them? It's and of course they came to the same conclusion. It's well, we need masculinity. We need Tim Waltz and good dads. And it's we don't know how to get okay, what if you tried literally it all even once? Just what if you tried? What if you tried to get the bro vote? And you could ask them what they want because you were interviewing these Trump 23-year-olds. And they said, I'm worried about inflation. And they're we have no idea what is wrong. Yeah. They must need Tim Waltz, Dad.
I was arguing with a Democrat about this. And of course, for some reason, it's more comforting for them to believe that the country has made an irreversible right-wing shift and that everything is over. We're never going to have elections again. Everything is fucked. They lost by 30 points. There's no point in politics. But I was arguing with him and I said, well, inflation kind of ate up wage growth for a lot of fucking people. And their response was that didn't happen.
Dude, so many progressives were inflation denialists. My friend, it's being a flat earther for them. My friend showed me someone she knew from college, their thing. He was oh, so we're electing the rapist because people care about the price of eggs. I'm like, eggs are expensive, God damn it. Have you bought eggs recently?
That used to be like a pretty big, like when George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush,
Yeah, when the checkout
like,
counter.
How much could milk be? $37. Like that was a big deal.
Back to
by the way, that guy worked for Goldman Sachs. Sorry, I forgot the punchline there.
You'll never believe how expensive quail eggs are these days. Just going back to the boy crisis here, Solnit writes, social media arose like a school of sharks in the information pool and began to devour the economic base of the news industry. A lot of mixed metaphors here. A school of sharks in the information pool.
What base do sharks devour? like the root of a tree, or like what?
Who are the sharks?
Okay, social media arose like a school of sharks in the information pool and began to devour the economic base of the news industry to undermine the filtration systems. Oh my God.
There was a
aquarium.
The boy crisis is that we don't have enough pool boys in the country because they need to scoop out the sharks that are clogging the information filter in the news pool.
This is also just another one of those, the problem with America is that my job is diminishing. And I'm like a huge... I think the decline of local news is a really bad issue. Polling kind of doesn't work because who agrees to take a poll? Nerds. Like, I think we needed to be able to read local news, and that's very hard to figure out, like, if you don't actually have that. But it's not like Rebecca Solnit was reporting on what was going on in Duluth.
In Youngstown, Ohio.
Yeah.
I'm stuck on the, I guess this is a metaphor. Like,
she just got an aquarium and she's really excited.
Bouillabaisse. Sing with the fish theme.
I hate it. Don't you hate it when you like leave your pool unattended for like a few days and a school of sharks arises in it and then destroys the base around the filtration system?
Well, it said the filtration system that had limited the spread of hate, lies, misinformation, and disinformation.
Okay, so there's there are two pipes that lead into your pool. One's the regular water pipe and one's the hate, lies, and disinformation pipe. And you're going to want to build a base around the bad pipe. But like, don't, even if you're not going to be home, just throw like a Roomba in your pool or something.
So
keep it occupied, because otherwise the school of sharks will arise and take out the good base.
So wait, but it's not just the filter. It's is she also the chlorine?
Well, okay. It's just, I'm glad you asked. But to talk about it as an information pool is to underestimate how much it has changed consciousness itself, how addictive and how distorting it is, how it manipulates values, emotions, and beliefs. Young men seem particularly vulnerable to its offerings, and many dank corners of the internet recruit them into misogyny and white supremacy via influencers and incel subcultures, into anti-Semitism and conspiracy theories, and more than that, into becoming unmoored, destabilized, unwell, and isolated.
It's the internet. Look, the internet makes everyone mentally ill, but again, you know what keeps you off the internet? Getting a job.
Yeah. And as to the point, like to my somewhat flip diagnosis here, to get a job, I mean that in a literal sense, because to me, like, getting a job is the only thing that, like, sort of, because you can't, like, retcon confidence if you have nothing to be confident in.
Yeah.
And I think the only way that you can gain confidence is by being useful to others. And, like, to demonstrating
having a role,
competence,
meaningful work.
Yeah, like demonstrating competence to others in a way that is sort of, that gratifies you, but is seen and recognized in some way. And, like, getting a job, getting some form of stable employment was the only thing that worked for me. But the thing is, like, you can't just, get a job, as I said, like, that's the pull up your pants thing. But if they're talking about a broader political agenda, it would be creating a lot of jobs, or giving jobs to young people.
It's a huge alienating thing to, like, have, like, to either to work an email job, which is, like, again, it has to be meaningful work, but, like, either to work a fucking grueling email job or, like, I don't know, 24 hours a week at GameStop or Starbucks or something. Like, how do you feel like your labor is in any way meaningful then, which is a way for you to recognize your place in society? It's how you know you're a part of society. You're like, oh, I do a thing, and that's how a thing gets done.
Well,
Yeah.
Someone depends on me.
Well,
Someone depends on me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't think it's possible to like give for everyone to have a job that like is immediately like not justifiable, but like worthwhile,
Meaningful.
Yeah, I just don't think that's like possible in America, unfortunately. But
Not right now. Could be.
it could be. But like even then, it's like you do need like cashiers and like service workers and shit.
Sure.
But
if that job was less grueling, if you still had like fucking,
What I'm saying is that like that would be like way less demeaning if you were able to like build a life from what you earn at that job.
Yeah.
If if like the infrastructure was in place for you to, you know, have places to go, have things to look forward to, have things in your life, which working a job like that now, you really can't get those things.
I think also the meaning you get from your job, even if it's like, you know, working retail or whatever, depends a lot on your how badly you're being squeezed for productivity.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
and
like,
also like how much money is left over at the end of the month to like live your life.
it's not,
Exactly.
you're like that. Well, it can't be that fucking meaningful if I can't get by.
Because like, you know, if a job is soul deadening drudgery, but still it pays you enough money so that you can like pay rent, afford some groceries, and have a little fun every weekend, then like you're
Exactly.
taking from your soul at the work, but then you're giving back to it.
Also, retail can be like fun if you're essentially minding the store and you have time to like gossip with your coworkers and you're taking your sweet ass time and you don't have to worry about not making it enough. Like the right to be the jobs that aren't quote unquote meaningful. One, you still know that you're keeping something running, even if it's like the way a Starbucks is going. Like even if it's like you don't have to be like a fucking doctor or whatever. Like you're like, I am a part of the way something is running. And if you have to work like 60 hours a week to do that and you're not compensated for it, you don't feel like you're actually useful. Like you're like, oh, I'm a cog in a machine.
Yeah. When you pay someone like literally like for them to pay their rent and like afford the basic things that all human beings are entitled to, they would have to go into debt to do that. How are they going to feel anything but worthless?
Yeah.
Also, it's to call it a pool is
let's go back to the pool.
Yeah, she after that whole pool thing, she's like, actually, it's way bigger than a pool. Okay, why were we in the pool?
I mean, like to get back to the infinity pool thing and the filtration systems and the spread of hate, lies. There are two different pipes: misinformation and disinformation. Buddy, you never want to connect either of those pipes to your pool. You just want water.
And if you get in the Ben Shapiro hot tub, do not stay in there too long. Like I
got a flesh-eating bacteria from the misinformation pool.
Baby. Yeah.
But again, like it's just this self-congratulation on how good you are, but never turning the mirror around to just be like, okay, why don't we talk about all of the lies, hate, and misinformation and disinformation of an outlet like The Guardian or the New York Times, which was like, you know, in a practical sense, many of their columnists and news items are like, Joe Biden's perfectly mentally fit to be president.
Yeah. Like, why would they
there's
trust
nothing
you?
wring with Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris is running a perfect campaign.
She's competent.
Israel is simply
She's
defending
experienced.
themselves. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. She might be competent. How would I know?
I'll read this next paragraph here. It says, the MAGA right, with its indifference to the normal issues of good governance and its preoccupation with clickbait distractions, is an online monster, and it has succeeded in creating a more angry, aggressive form of masculinity. One more convinced that debasing and dominating women is essential to its identity, whether in porn or in Trump's fantasizing aloud that Liz Cheney should face a firing squad and Harris face Mike Tyson.
I'm sorry.
So sick.
People keep telling me this shit, and they keep saying like America's getting worse about like fucking, you know, racism and sexism. You cannot tell me that a Democrat steel worker in 1976 is more sexist than like some like dork who's in like $40,000 of fucking college debt. Like, you just can't. Now, maybe they were less angry, but that's different. That's a different thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's as ridiculous as people who think like it's just like an unending, slow but steady drip of like 1 year is always better than the next. It's as ridiculous to think this is like the like the social nadir of America.
People were alive during Jim Crow are still alive now.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot tell me it's like equivocally getting like fucking like worse. Maybe it's more like up, down, up,
Amber,
down, up, down.
they've created a new kind of masculinity. They're creating a new, even more aggressive and angry form of masculinity. It's called masculinity 2.
Yeah, I mean, like, I definitely think like things are getting dumber. Like people are dumber than ever.
Yeah,
but that's because of phones and like that. A competent political party would like figure a way around that. They would be like free propeller hats and lollipops when you vote. I don't like whatever, but
we keep coming back to hats.
But I think we cracked the case here.
Yeah, but like, no, just. I mean, again, it is more comforting for them to think like,
this is now officially a totally Nazi country now.
It's like completely lost. Like, just forget about it. Every man you see is like a potential SVU suspect.
I just want to finish this paragraph. She says, the endless memes of Trump as Rambo and rescuers and Jesus show how much the Lost Boys and MAGA women want an authoritarian leader. And the fact that they can make one out of the physically and mentally pathetic Trump is a testimony to the power of tech-fueled fantasy.
Oh, yeah, because libs never do embarrassing memes.
Okay,
yeah, or like, how could they say this infirm man is like a big tough hero?
Yeah.
Anyway, Joe Biden is saving the soul of America.
Yes.
We're going to give him like glowing eyes.
The endless memes of Trump as Rambo, I don't think I've seen a single meme with Trump as Rambo.
I've seen some strongman ones.
Yeah, I think because Rebecca Solnit doesn't understand masculinity and has probably never even seen First Blood or Rambo First Blood Part 2 or Rambo 3 or Rambo Last Stand.
They drew first blood, not me.
She hasn't seen any of those things, so she probably just sees Trump with muscles holding a gun and assumes it's Rambo.
She doesn't even know about the brave Mujahideen.
But no. And it says here, of course, Silicon Valley, media, and the crisis in masculinity converge in Elon Musk, who used his ownership of the monstrous blah, blah, blah. And it just goes on like that.
It's just touching on all the shit that she writes about.
Yeah, like, how are they still writing this fucking article? I swear to God, there were like 9 books that came out during the Trump presidency that were called like Dark Computer, the rise of the scary internet. Evil poked you. Facebook and the Nazification of it. Like all these books where like some fucking idiot was like, that's right. I spent 3 months going on 4chan. The darkest place of the dark web.
I created a burner account to talk to weirdos online.
Yeah. And it's just like inside the depths of the evil computer that's making America crazy. Like,
I think also they're like the CIA with pedophiles. They go in there just to prod them.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, I spoke about this on Thursday's show, but like, the
FBI with pedophiles. I mix up my but I mean, they're both doing it. Yeah, I was just talking domestically.
but I think inherent in this thing about like the dark internet and dark masculinity is this idea that like anger of any kind is evil.
Yeah.
Or that anger at
and
the political system. Yeah, anger at our democracy or our political system is inherently like fascistic and evil and racist. And it's just like, once again, like, you can point at the like some of the nasty stuff that people say on the internet, and it's certainly like, I'm not going to say it's not racist or disturbing to read, but like, I think there is a conscious conflation of like racist bile on the internet and like the broader feeling of anger at the politicians and our form of government in this country, because I'm sorry, like it was the Democrats, it was the nice people party that has been doing unspeakable evil for the last 4 fucking years.
Where does that factor in all of this?
Yeah.
Where does giving carte blanche to the most right wing, like,
the genocidal racist country on the planet.
Psychotic country of fucking a mafia state of rapists. Where does that factor in?
No, I think it's because they're all suddenly mean for no reason whatsoever. It just happened. It's like a disease. It's an idiopathic disease. It's like cancer. No one knows. It just happens sometimes.
Well,
and like anger gets displaced.
Yeah.
It just does. It's just like fucking, especially with like young people because they're stupid and don't know anything yet. Just give them jobs. Just fucking give them jobs. I don't even need them to be self-reflective. Someone was talking to me about like, we need to look at this meme. They should commit seppuku. And I'm like, they're not capable of thinking, maybe it's me. Like, I don't care if they never get that no one likes them. I just want them to, even if it's cynical, be like, oh, the dum-dums will like us if we give them jobs.
Yeah, I just like in all of these like tortured fucking like these screeds that we have been reading endlessly since 2016 about the how just the cultural degeneration of America and like the rage and nastiness of everything. How does it never factor in that like, when you say cause the deaths of 2 million people in a war and it's just swept under the rug? Does that not devalue human life? Does that not like factor into the calculation when like you kill kill a cleric who one time met a guy who knew like the number 3 in Al Qaeda, and all of his kids die, and you're like, well, it's the company you keep. Does that not fucking devalue human life?
Well, and also like a lot of these angry young men are pissed about Israel. And at what point does that cease to be a compassion in and of itself? Like you're writing that off as pure anger,
right?
But it's a compassionate anger.
Yeah.
So like, how come they don't get credit for that?
Yeah. And like, and for all the talk about like, the rise in hatred or anti-Semitism, like I've seen some of the most vile racist propaganda I've ever seen in my life published in the pages of liberal newspapers and magazines.
Yeah.
But it's all about Palestinians. And as long as you're talking about like wokeness and identity politics, some of the like most serious crackdowns and impositions of speech codes on university campuses have happened this year, but it was all directed at pro-Palestinian protests. Yeah. You can't even say the word Palestine on most campuses anymore without getting expelled.
Yeah, that is the one group of people where they're still allowed to say that we feel unsafe and you need to hold space for us. That somehow never counts as fucking identity politics. I don't think I've seen a single like liberal like official Democratic Party like media organ even mention Israel in any of this. No one thinks that it like single-handedly lost the election for Biden, but to act like it didn't have an effect and that it has no salience for American voters is fucking insane.
If you think that there's no connection between the fact that Kamala got a lower percentage of the youth vote than any other Democrat, by a lot than any of the past Democratic elections, have nothing to do with their policy towards Gaza, that's just, I'm sorry, you're lying. People are lying to you, or it's cope. There's no fucking way around it.
They've been doing this fucking Michelle Obama. They're still beating this drum. It's like, by the way, if you don't vote for Kamala, you are holding all the women in your life hostage to your anger. Gee, I wonder why they don't like you. You've spent the past, since the Hillary campaign, telling young men specifically, that they are horrible racists and are absolute misogynists if they don't vote for Hillary fucking Clinton. And then every time you do it, you're like, look how dangerous they are. Look how hateful they are. And one, people are going to resent that. Two, also, if you accuse someone of something over and over and over again, hey, if you're going to do the time, you might as well do the crime.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah, at some point, it's like, okay, you think I'm a fucking angry piece of shit? I'll show you an angry piece of shit.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Israel stuff, because like if they're just gonna call you anti-Semitic,
you might as well do it.
Yeah, at some point it's like, okay, I'll give you something to fucking cry about.
Absolutely.
And again, it just continues to be shocking to me because like this is after they lost this fucking election. I still see some of these cretins like crawling on fucking all fours to kiss the ass of Israel. Like, for instance, in the soccer hooliganism riot that happened in Amsterdam over the weekend, Joe Biden issued a statement condemning the anti-Semitic attacks in Amsterdam.
So like now, just like how America is permanently lost, right-wing hellhole, like you just no one good will ever win. The Netherlands as a whole, anti-Semitic country.
Yeah.
And like, thank God we found out now.
And then the
Also, how do you think they feel about Muslims? Like, for Christ's sake.
The corollary there is this idea that like, because of Elon Musk and young men, America's now like irrevocably right wing or whatever. But also, like, when you look at Israel, just know it's all Netanyahu's fault. It's not the country or the entire government. It's Netanyahu. Like, look, there's plenty of good people there, but like, I mean, did you see the thing about how Sky News published a broadcast, a news account of the riots in Amsterdam that, you know, described factually the, you know, racist hooliganism that incited this, you know, I'm sorry, like a bunch of drunk Israeli soccer fans getting their ass kicked by Dutch Moroccans.
By the way, I got to point this out. The way, you guys know the way that the New York Times framed this?
Oh, please.
Chaos, provocations, and violence. How attacks on Israeli soccer fans unfolded. This is the slug underneath. Anti-Semitic assaults on visiting Israeli soccer fans and the incendiary chants and attacks by some Israelis. And attacks by some Israelis. Just putting that into a final thing.
I saw a similar version of that, Amber, that described anti-Semitic attacks and then described the behavior of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans as like anti-Arab slogans. So one is an one is a form of unacceptable bigotry and like systemized ideological hatred of another race. The other is just simply some anti-Arab slogans were shouted.
Also, I'm sorry, they're soccer fans. They do that for no reason anyway.
And not only that, but Maccabi Tel Aviv lost 5-0.
Yeah, and
which is like losing a basketball game by triple digits.
They also the Maccabi Ultras had Mossad agents in tow and still fucking lost.
Really interesting way to be like that. Just like that's not what I would have led with, but okay.
And it's also funny that Israelis love to tell you how they're not European, but then their football club loses a match and they engage in racist hooliganism in the street. Seems like a pretty old tradition. It seems like pretty European culture to me.
Yeah,
I saw the Sky News, like the first Sky News report that happened before they got yelled at, and like. That was the only major news counting of it I've seen so far where first it like very prominently discussed how the first thing the Israeli Ultras did was just randomly assault a fucking Moroccan cab driver.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the response was just based on how cab drivers talk to each other. And we're like, you know, that guy probably went, hey, these are the assholes that beat the shit out of me for no reason.
Yeah. And also, again, I don't know. All these guys get into fights over fucking someone spilling a beer on somebody that are this size anyway. It was like the Nazi punching like debates. I'm like, you know, people get punched for fucking liking the wrong team, like for being a non-Philadelphia sports fan. Like, I don't know, like, one, how you could characterize this as the Israelis not starting it, but two, why it's a big deal if they get their asses kicked.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you went to a soccer game.
Yeah. And okay, like I did love the interview at the one Maccabi Tel Aviv who said, the Arabs spanked my bottom and now my bottom is sore.
A bee bit my bottom and now my bottom is big.
Like,
this is
Arabs
just like Anne Frank.
and I gotta say, my favorite was the guy that they just dumped in the canal. And he was like, they were like, we'll leave if you say free Palestine. And he was like, free Palestine. And like, again, like the fact that the entire news media treated this like these assholes starting a fight, getting their fucking asses kicked by, I know thanks to you, Felix, Dutch Moroccans can fight.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite kickboxers of all time.
They have to. They're in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
One of my favorite kickboxers of all time, Badr Hari. Just knockout king. I wish he was there.
But no, like we're just they lose an election and they're still having to denounce some soccer fans getting their ass kicked in fucking Holland. Like the U.S. government has to speak on this. The U.S. really, Yeah, like you're
That's
still
none of my business.
you're still kissing the ass of this fucking rotten country that like A, cost you the election.
Yeah.
B, was doing everything in their power to elect your opponent.
This is the first time the U.S. has cared about soccer,
Yeah.
like ever.
And then like to see all the comments about like, oh, like I hope they're happy when Gaza gets razed and colonized by the Israelis. And it's just sort of like they were doing that in front of everyone's face like a week ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing has changed here. And I'm sure like, look, to the extent that like the Trump administration will be even more like frictionless for the like ongoing, colonization of the Gaza Strip, then like fine. But like, would have been nice if Joe Biden had disagreed with the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, because originally his message was that like there will be no ceding of territory. Here, this is just a limited military operation. Well, then it's incumbent on him to speak out against it, which he certainly hasn't done.
Yeah.
And what they have done is in the waning days of this election, give Israel a 30-day deadline to start complying with international human rights. And then, well, the 30-day deadline was up several days after the election. So I'm hoping for a follow-up on that.
Sure, that'll be enforced, yeah.
But once again,
it's just like, pass the buck, too, because they could say, we tried. He's the one fucking...
I do not want to. I cannot bear to hear a single bar about how fucking genocidal, racist, and evil the Trump administration will be after a year of this shit from the Democrats.
Yeah,
it's just like I can't do it. Can't do it. Not gonna have it. Not gonna have it. I guess the last thing I'll talk about, like, I'm wondering if my favorite of the post-election reactions came courtesy of Joy Reid on MSNBC.
Woo.
And when I heard a transcript of this, I literally thought someone was making it up. I had to watch the clip for myself.
The fake news.
I thought it was fake news. But she was like talking about how you can't blame this on Kamala. She ran a brilliant, perfect campaign.
I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed.
Her evidence for that was literally Queen Latifah endorsed her this time. And Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. And then she went on to say, of course, she had the Swifties on her side, too. And by the way, the Swifties as a political force is pretty hilarious because I guarantee you half of them voted for Donald Trump. We're talking about white women here. We're talking about white women here. So a good chunk of them were probably Trump supporters. But I just to say, like, her plaintive sort of wail, Queen Latifah endorsed her. And Queen Latifah, she never endorses anyone.
Yeah, they're really tapped into the American people.
I mean, I knew The Equalizer was a popular show. But I didn't know how popular.
How do you think the Swifties would do as soccer hooligans?
It would be like chimps. Like they would like attack like your eyes and like
yeah. There'd be a lot of hair pulling.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there for today. Till next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, and left wing hats are available at Chapo Trap House store.